Well, hello, my lovely people. Welcome to Cove's Epilogue, where we get to finally have our romantic relationship with Cove and potentially get married if we see fit. And I wonder, who will we be seeing in step 4? Only time will tell. Let's get into it. And so your days growing up in the loving cradle of Sunset Bird came to an end. In the years that had passed since graduation, you moved out of your childhood home and made your own way in the world. You lived with Cove, his fish, and the pets you picked. And you co-owned a business with Cove in the STEM field. Your family members went through the same kind of leaps and independence. Liz and Lee eventually earned degrees and started fantastic careers in new towns. But your moms and Cove's father still lived on the same streets as they had for all those years before. It was comforting to you that there were some things that remained in the old neighborhood. And despite the ever-changing reality of your adult life, your friends were still your friends. Though, of course, things weren't exactly the same for them either. Very recently, Terry publicly came out as a man, switching the spelling of his name to use Y instead of an I. He also confessed his love for Miranda, which she excitedly reciprocated. They moved in together, recently in the city out past Sunset Bird. Derek was as busy as always, but doing well. He always made an effort to keep in touch, and you saw each other in person occasionally. For the person who left town and you behind, you called and texted, and Baxton never answered. It still hurt. Anytime you remembered, you were brought down. No matter how much time passed, your heart clenched every time something reminded you of Baxter. It seemed your thoughts and feelings would go unheeded by him for the rest of your life. And there's what became of the sad little boy you grew up with, Cove Holden. Your deep affection for him was something that continued to last unabated over the years. And the two of you got together and then engaged. He was your fiancé. The past years were certainly busy. You'll never forget the moment the love you had for one another was let out in the open. Cove and you wore rings to signify your relationship. The ring Cove wore looked like... Oh! Okay. Silver. So we have the choice between... Okay. Gold doesn't have any other choices, but you can either do silver or platinum. I just did a Google search. Platinum is apparently the better choice than silver because it's apparently more durable and requires less maintenance and less likely to tarnish. And so we're gonna go with a silver. Okay, what reminds us of our little Cove? We need to give something with adorable. I want to go with this, but it doesn't feel right to me. So I think we're gonna go with this, but we could do a pearl. Man, this must feel like what people go through when they're picking engagement rings. He has truly thrived in his continued efforts for cultivating and loving. He truly thrived in his continued efforts of cultivating loving and supportive relationships with his family and friends. You can say his personality had changed exactly. Instead, it became more refined. Cove was warm, Cove was a warm, inviting, considerate man who took the lessons he had learned over the years to treat people around him with patience and understanding. When Cove eventually developed a picture for the future he wanted as an adult, it made perfect sense to you based on his interests. He went to college to study marine biology. His ultimate goal was finding environmental consultant jobs on the side while also working at your shared business. And he still volunteered with Orca when his workload allowed it. As an adult, Cove was able to recognize and have diagnosed that he was on the autism spectrum. It was something that hadn't been noticed by his doctors as a child, but he was still the same Cove he was to you. He was just glad to understand himself better. It thrilled to see you to see how happy and successful he'd grown up to be. On the whole, life continued its steady beat forward, and you all went with it down the path you chose. It was strange and wonderful. But no matter how old you got, how far you roamed, or how long away you were, the home you had in Sunset Bird still called you back eventually. Oh, we still have Mr. Holden's car. At least it looks like it's still Mr. Holden's old car. It's hard to tell. I want to say it might be. The car rumbled down the highway. You'd started to zone out when a truck in the left lane loudly zoomed past. Your driver didn't remark on it, just like anything else on this trip. You went back to staring out the window, letting the scenery pass by. You did appreciate the spacious back seat of your ride. You had known... Oh wait, no, it's a taxi then. You did appreciate the spacious back seat of your ride. You had known exactly when you'd be coming in, so you decided to use a ride app rather than asking your mom to pick you up. It turned out to be a pretty convenient choice. You look forward to surprising your parents at the door. You smiled at the thought of their faces lighting up. Luckily, this hadn't been a big trip for you. You lived close enough that the travel hadn't turned into a big production. However, it did make the occasion mundane. For once, your moms had decided to have a modest celebration dinner for their anniversary. Unlike when you were growing up, they preferred not to make a big deal out of it. This year, they were comfortable having a party. As time went on, they found being the center of attention easier to handle. You were happy to see it. With this going on, there was no way either you or Liz would miss your mom's anniversary. Both of you made plans to come back home for it. You didn't hear from Liz about her exact schedule, but you hadn't shared yours either. It did remind you when you were kids and you both knew to show up for dinner, but didn't keep each other in the loop about each other's pre-dinner plans. This was the same concept after all. Some things would stay the same, and yet it was definitely different from when you were doing. And yet it was definitely different from when you would see your sister every day, and you thought of what she was doing, anyways, from osmosis. Today, you had no idea. Things are always changing. You mused on how at times it was hard to believe you didn't live with your parents anymore, and yet you couldn't imagine going back and living as kids under their rules. The rest of the day flew by. Your silent driver provided a smooth ride, no sharp turns or hard-stop jostled you out of your own head. Your thoughts turned from introspective to observant. The landscape passing by became more and more familiar. You frequently recognized the landmarks that dotted the area. A big grin came to your face as you passed the now entering sign for Sunset Bird. You sure it's not the now leaving sign? We keep passing that one by a lot. Excitement built within you. You were really here. You were doing this. Your driver turned off on the street and you realized that their map program was taking you the way home that Matt preferred. You usually would have used the other side street to pass by the beach. In no time at all, the car had gone through the whole town and pulled in front of your mum's condo. The car slowed to a stop and parked. With the bus of the highway gone, you realized that you could hear the rush of familiar sounds of waves. The air smelled like salt, and a rush of childhood memories flooded back. You started to gather your things, humming to yourself once more about how happy your mums would be to see you. After that, you notify everyone else that you made the trip safely. You pulled your suitcase from the other seat and yanked your bag from down near your feet. Tap, tap. You started at the sound of tapping on glass. It caused you to pause. Did you really hear what you thought you did? You weren't entirely sure because soon you heard something else. The window on the opposite side of the car rolling down. It confused you until you put it together that despite the driver's silence, you weren't actually alone in this car. The driver must have pressed the button. Someone had to be there. You turned your head to face the now open window. There he was, leaning his arms across the window. Your fiancé, Cove Holden. He beamed at you with one of his precious open smiles. Hi, Callie. What a surprise it is. I didn't expect to see you in this neighborhood. He was joking, of course. Seeing your expression, he decided to push it further. It's not like I've been waiting out here all morning or anything. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. He chuckled at your apology and inclined his head. Don't worry about it. He then gripped the top of the car door, pushed half his torso through the opening. That was enough to make the driver break the silence with a sharp, "Hey!" Cove didn't seem to notice and continued climbing in through the window. He pushed one hand down into the middle seat to prop his dangling body up. He could use his other hand to caress your cheek as he leaned in close as he could. I missed you. You flicked his nose. You stretched your hand out and gave him a solid, friendly flick to the bridge of his nose.
Hey!
Hey! He gasped indignantly, but even then he couldn't cover his smile with a fake affront. Okay, now get out the window, you crazy person. But it's so comfortable. His body was shaking from the effort it took to maintain his precarious position. Cove's smile turned awkward as his arm tried to bend lower, causing his body to slide down with it. He turned his head to the driver. Sorry. I'm always causing trouble in this neighborhood. Cove shifted around some more and squirmed back the way he came. After he successfully pushed off the window and landed on the pavement with a thud, he opened your car door. You threaded your arms through the various straps of your bags and climbed out. Cove took a few long strides around the back of the car and quickly met you on your side. Cove stood in front of you. It struck that you two were back in Sunset Bird, reunited once again on the street. You jumped into his arms. But you put down your luggage fast. You dropped your bags on the paved road and got the bounding start to leap into Cove. He caught you, unsurprised at your action. When you were situated, he leaned on the balls of his heels, fully lifted you off the ground. His goofy grin let you know just how much he was enjoying your enthusiastic embrace. You were too tall for him to pick you up too far off the ground. That being said, he still gave it his best effort, and you enjoyed the inch or so between your toes on the pavement. With one last swing, he let you back down. You were really ecstatic to be around him again, and absolutely thrilled that it was here, in this town where you were together. Even if it had only been a short time since you had seen him off, you had still missed Cove greatly. It somehow felt a lot longer. Given your different schedules and travel abilities, it worked out better for Cove to head out to Sunset Bird first. He'd only arrived the evening before, however, and secured the hotel room. Until now, you had never had to deal with that inconvenience of being in a tourist-heavy area. It was a fight to get a place to stay close by during the heat of the summer vacation season. Living without him at your place is strange. Cove was basically a part of you at this point. You were glad to feel whole again. Oh! You rightly shifted your luggage, then it struck you that you were one short. You got out in such a hurry, you reached back into the car to pull it out. Cove stood aside as you made a dash to the door. You showed this small bag. It felt relieved that you would be able to brush your teeth tonight. Got everything this time? You stood up straight, everything truly gathered up and out of the car. You gave the backseat one last glance and then nodded. Cove shut the car door after you moved out of the way. The two of you stepped off the street to get the driver's room. Cove waved. Sorry again! The driver said nothing and drove off. Okay, right. Here's our boy properly. And you can see out the ring that he's wearing on his finger. It looks nice. With the road clear, you let your gaze drift across the neighborhood that you'd known forever. It was such a small place to spend so many days. You were flooded with memories of going up and down this street during every stage of your life. Being a little kid, following your big sister to the playground, becoming a teen and staying out later, and growing into an adult who left their parents' house behind to be independent. You could feel the summer sun on your skin from all the times you headed out to the beach. You saw the same surroundings as you saw the same surroundings that you as a young adult did when leaving home. It was hard to quantify the amount of history you had here. And now you are back. Despite taking in the neighborhood again, you never lost awareness of Cove's presence. From the corner of your eye, seeing him there was a very familiar sight as well. So many of your memories included him. Your mind drifted from the neighborhood itself to the person who used to live there. You couldn't help the feeling of nostalgia. You still remembered his face, his voice, the scar on his arm from the days long gone. He had changed so much since you first met him. Yet, even with those changes, he was always recognizable. He was familiar like the sky was, and in the way you knew the sea. Every day, they may appear different, but they're still an inextricable part of life. It was the world you helped It was the world with help from Mr. Holden and his ill-thought $20 bill that brought you together to begin with. But the two of you had chosen each other. You had never let your interactions fade, and you decided to nurture your relationship into what it was. And you would continue to keep Cove close into all of the rest of your adult years. He was the love of your life, your wonderful fiancé. The day when you would officially be married couldn't come soon enough. He was the one you wanted to keep spending year after year with, as you had done for years before this. It'd be impossible to imagine life without him. Cove noticed you staring at him after a while, and smiled with his eyebrows rising curiosity. He was very transparent in his question, if there was something you wanted to say. You shook your head and returned him a soft expression. You let yourself get carried away in the tide of memories, but now it's time to focus on the present. Ready to go see my mom's? Cove nodded, then pointed to all your luggage bundled around your legs. Can I help with any of that? No. It's like carrying in all my groceries in one go. I can do it.
Fine.
Fine. Who am I to, well, fine. Who am I to get in the way of your task? He smacked at your seriousness, at something that was admittedly ridiculous. The bag situation resolved, the two of you strolled into the Wolf residence door. You started to pat your pockets instinctively, only to realize that you no longer carried a key to the house. Your eyes scanned the entryway, a little lost, only to spy the doorbell. The thought of having to ring it felt super weird. You pressed the inconveniently placed button on the side wall. You remembered that no matter how much this place would always be a home to you, it wasn't where you lived. Being back here was like putting on a uniform after you quit the store where it came from. It remained the same, but your circumstances had changed. Cove shifted on his feet awkwardly, obviously also being thrown about you being stuck out here, heelless. You heard muffled voices and shuffling around from inside. Your heartbeat sped up in anticipation. The door swung open, and there was your mom's smiling face. She immediately brightened to seeing you standing there. Well, well, well. Mom twisted her head back and gave a shout down the hall. Lonnie, guess who's here? There was more distant noises. No doubt Ma was getting up from where she was to come see. Her high-spirited words rang out clearly. I hope it's one of my children. Mom snickered, still holding the door only half open to hide you for a little longer. Cove flushed as if suddenly realizing he was going to be present for your mom's enthusiastic welcoming of you. You smiled to reassure him that he wasn't intruding. Ma finally reached the door and peered over Mom's shoulder. It is! Hello, Callie. She gave you a once-over pat on the tops of your shoulders and moving down the sides of your arms before you noted in satisfaction that you were in one piece.
How sweet.
This is a wonderful surprise. Ma inclined her head to Cove next, not leaving him out either. Hello, sweetie. You count as one of my children at this point anyway. I have double the surprise today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You snorted at your mom's greetings. They never changed. Cove bashfully waved at them. He hadn't relaxed fully, but he settled down at their welcome. Well, don't just stand out there. Come on in. Your mom moved aside and held open the door for you, gesturing for you to enter. You stepped into the living room. It was comfortable and cool. Cove was a half a step behind you. His eyes on the new painting your mom's must have added since the last time you were here. Where? I don't see nothing. Unless I'm just blind, then it is what it is. The house feels like it's definitely changed a lot. It's like since we were last here. Specifically with the kitchen table. It feels like it's got less chairs. And it's got like some furniture near it. With some flowers. Wow. It's pretty cool though. Things are mostly the same, but there are more decorations since you last seen the house. Mom may have gone the edge for some interior designing again. It struck you how odd it was to be the guest, only observing their choices for the living space here, rather than being a full-time occupant. Ma came up in front of you, her excitement in her eyes. I'm so glad you're here.
That's fine.
You know, your mom and I would be happy to have picked you up, but you're self-sufficient and responsible. That's okay. What matters is that you arrived safely. Mom appeared at her side with a nod. Welcome back, kiddos. You still appreciated that your parents respected you as an adult, even if Mom still called you kiddo. You figured long ago that you'd always be her kiddo no matter how grown you become. It was part of the whole parent-child deal with her. You hugged your moms. You took another step forward and pulled Mom and Ma into a great big hug, squeezing them tight. Their arms embraced around you in return. You could feel their love for you in their embrace. I wanted to surprise you. Aww. Well, you succeeded. Your timing was lovely. It's always nice when I'm able to come by. Your mom's giggled, pleased. I hope you've been doing well. Is everything set up for your anniversary dinner?
No problem.
We're happy to help if there's something we can do. We've been plenty fine. It's been a little quiet, but that's not a bad thing. Mom placed her arm around Ma's shoulder and gave her a side hug.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about the party. We're just flying to eat at the Cypress, nothing fancy. Which is kind of a funny thing to say about a pretty fancy country club. The biggest issue has just been making sure everyone can make it for the day. Speaking of which, Liz will be arriving tonight. We're planning on picking her up later. I guess Liz isn't as grown as Callie. Mom snickered at her own joke, and Ma lightly elbowed her with a belly-hitting grin.
Shush.
Shush! As I was saying, we could drop you off wherever you're staying if you don't mind waiting for that. I'm sorry there's not space for you in the house. It's not crowded in those old rooms since you and Liz moved out. I don't know where all this stuff keeps coming from. Mm-hmm. Sure you don't, Pamela. It's okay. Cove already has a hotel room. I'm gonna be staying in anyway. Cove sent you some pictures of the place when he arrived. Stylish and roomy. It seemed very nice.